Now that we've laid out the process by which international labor standards are adopted, submitted, and ratified, it's a good time to ask, what opportunities are there for unionists to use existing international labor standards, to urge their ratification, or to support the adoption of new ones? In other words, what we're asking here is, with respect to these standards, what are some of the roles that trade unionists can play? We should begin with a fundamental point. If you look to the history of the ILO, and certainly if you were to attend its annual conference, or read its reports or summaries of its activities, you come to appreciate the vital role that unionists play in the life of the ILO. To put it simply, as among the tripartite parties, it is usually the unions, more precisely the workers' representatives, who introduce new initiatives to the ILO, who prod the organization to live up to its constitutional principles and declarations, and who are the primary moving parties behind monitoring and compliance activity. All in all, trade unions use international standards to advance labor's agenda. And this has been true ever since the beginning of the ILO. Now, when we break down that broad point into its particulars, we can see the following. With respect to existing international labor standards, whether they be conventions or recommendations, trade unionists can point to them in the course of national debates and negotiations over the content of legislation and policy. Likewise, when debate is at the industry or enterprise level, unionists can refer to these standards in discussions over regulations or collective agreements. In addition, international labor standards may be a useful tool for union lawyers to better defend worker rights when they litigate before domestic courts or other tribunals. Regarding the adoption of new standards, trade unions can play a key role in marshaling and presenting evidence that supports the need for the new standard. And of course, unionists do the necessary organizing and advocacy and lobbying needed to eventually obtain the simple majority in the governing body for the inclusion of an item on the International Labor Conference agenda. And in the standard-setting process that follows, unions, of course, seek to influence the form and content of any new instrument. Regarding the submission of recently adopted instruments, trade unions can work within their countries to make sure that their national governments take prompt action to submit those instruments to their respective parliaments. And of course, when it comes to ratification of conventions, particularly those of greatest importance to a national labor movement, trade unions can play a crucial role in campaigning to get their governments to ratify. Finally, trade unions play a major part in seeing to it that conventions are lived up to, both in law and in practice. And they do that by supporting and participating in the supervisory mechanisms of the ILO. And those mechanisms are the subject of our next session in this module. Thank you.